So hi everybody, it's very good to meet you. My name is Davor and I come from Serbia, Belgrade. I've been doing vegan activism for the past couple of years, and today I'm here with you to share what I've learned so far about effective ways of communication in the street activism. I am representing an organization called Animalia 269 from Belgrade, Serbia, and I wanted to thank you all guys for inviting me here and for giving me a chance to relay my message to all of you who are listening. And hi to everybody who is following via Facebook or YouTube links. So without further ado, I will just get into it so that we can maximize the time used. Today, I will talk specifically about street activism, about techniques that can be used and applied in talking to random and unknown bystanders who are just passing by, who never had any touch with veganism, and how to get a total stranger that you just met on the street from zero to agreeing to look upon veganism and even try veganism for themselves. So first of all, I would like to say a word or two about vegan activism itself. Why do I do street vegan activism? Well, I tend to use the analogy, it is well-known analogy with dog. So when you see a man on the street beating a dog, if you join the man and say, yeah, I will beat the dog with you, that would represent carnism. If you see a man on the street beating a dog and you say, no, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to ignore that and just go by, that would represent the veganism. So you're excluding yourself from the violence. And vegan activism would be seeing a man beating a dog on the street and taking a stance in front of him and saying, no, I'm not going to allow you to do that. So that's why I'm doing the street activism, because I believe that veganism is cool and awesome and everything, but we need to do more. We need to get active and to get people to see why going vegan, why becoming an activist is so important for the animals. And the other thing is, I would also like to say that here I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Most of the things I learned on the conferences such as this one, and also through practice. So I will be talking about the techniques I've learned from a fellow activist, Alex Benz. Also, I'm largely applying knowledge I attained from like world famous surfing ad. And so I would just like to give a shout out to them as well for doing everything and teaching us everything we know so far. When we speak about street activism, I'm mainly aiming at events such as Circle of Silence or Cube of Truth, or any types of street activism, which includes direct communication between the activists and the bystanders, people who are not non-vegans, who have no prior experience with veganism. And in this regard, first of all, I would like to speak about the difference between process and content of our message that we are trying to convey to the bystanders. So let me now see if this thing works when I shift my camera around. Okay, so, nope. So like I said, process versus content. Sorry for the, you can see the above, it's from the PowerPoint, but process versus content difference, the main difference in this thing is that the content of veganism is what we are talking about. It's the message we're trying to send to the people. It's the message we are trying to relate to the individuals. So content would be things like general things like what is veganism, what does it mean to be a vegan, why did we choose to be vegans in the first place. And after that, we tend to go into more specific topics such as, you know, ethics of veganism and health benefits or environmental issues that are facilitated by the non-vegan approach. And we as activists tend to learn all the answers to all the questions, tend to watch the other activists online, on Facebook, on YouTube. We tend to seek deeper understanding of all the arguments and counter-arguments of veganism, and that would basically represent the content of the message we're trying to relate. However, yeah, and actually compared to any non-vegan in the world, pretty much every single one of us that is either vegan or doing street activism can be considered pretty much an expert in the field of veganism. And because we invested a lot of time into research, we read a couple of you know, books, we maybe watched a couple of documentaries, and we try to memorize all these things that are very important to us. And in that regard, we are basically considered experts in the vegan field. So the question is, we know all this stuff, we are ready to go out, talk to people, we are excited about sharing all the things we know. And when we actually go out and talk to people, often we find out that it is not enough to just, you know, hammer down people with all the
you need to turn microphone because there is some issues with sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, please continue.
Okay, so yeah, it's usually not enough to go out there and just hammer people with all the arguments that we have in, you know, for the veganism. Like if they say plants have feelings, we have the counter argument for that. If they say, but what about protein? We know the answer to that. And often we try to get into debates with people. So usually it doesn't end in people going vegan. It ends in people digging even deeper into the, you know, the cognitive distance, and all the knowledge that we had, that we shared with them, goes to wane because, you know, we didn't pay as much attention to the way we related to that message as much as we paid attention to the message itself. There is a Canadian philosophist who said, medium is the message. What does this mean? This means that the way that we convey the message is so important that the message itself becomes secondary to the whole story. That doesn't mean that vegan values and veganism and animal rights are secondary. It just means that the way we are trying to convey this message to the people must align with the needs of those people to understand and not to feel pushed into anything, and not to feel, you know, like you're pushing your beliefs down their throat. As you know, that's a term we often hear, you know, you don't stop being pushy, don't push your opinions down my throat. It's okay for you to believe in something, I don't have to believe as well. However, most of the time, like 99 out of 100 times, common people who actually stop by at events such as Cube of Truth or Circle of Silence or any other like animal experience. They actually share the vegan values. They actually share the belief that animals should not be harmed, that animals deserve to be free, that we don't have a right to harm anybody just to, because it's convenient or because it's, because we derive pleasure from it. And what we are actually trying to do through this, as I said, content, what we're trying to do through the process of relaying that content is to help people align their own beliefs that animals should not be harmed, that animals are creatures to be respected. So we are helping them to connect their beliefs with their actions. So they believe that animals shouldn't be harmed, but people are obviously eating animals. So if you believe one thing, but you do other thing, it's our job to help them connect with that. The next thing I will tell you about is how we do that. There is a difference between the coaching approach and the teaching approach. Teaching is a method that is focused on a teacher itself. So you have to tailor your attention to the teacher. You have to listen to what the teacher is saying. You have to take down notes. And every time we try to teach people about veganism, most of the time, people will perceive us as if we are trying to sell them something, as if we are just giving them a bunch of features, a bunch of, perks about going vegan, about becoming an activist, about not harming animals. We will talk about the ethics, about environment, about health, etc., etc. And most of the attention will be focused on us as the activists. On the other hand, the coaching approach is a method in which we are shifting the attention to the bystander. So we are shifting the attention of our knowledge, of our ability to relay the message of veganism to the person to whom we are talking to. So, in relation to this, there is a famous quote by French scientist Blaise Pascal. He said, "People are usually convinced by the reason they discover themselves rather than the knowledge they are given by the other people." So to make this very simple and easy to remember, people believe what they say, not what they hear. So when people hear themselves saying things, they are more likely to believe in those things than accepting the message if they hear it from us. So I guess the $1 million question in this thing would be how to get a random bystander, a person we never talked with, a person who never had, maybe never given any thoughts to veganism, how to get those people to say and talk about what we want to talk about. We want to share the vegan values. We want to share the principles of non-violence to the animals. We want to share our amazing and wide knowledge that we have about this topic. And here we are applying this coaching method. There are techniques that we can learn to allow people to express themselves and hear themselves actually saying things like animals are not to be harmed, and animals are suffering, this is bad, etc., etc. So I mentioned before, many people are already familiar with the Socrates method, but just for those that are not, the Socrates method is the method of coming to a conclusion or drawing ideas through asking questions. And this is very important in our work on the street activism, because through a set of questions, we can pretty much steer the flow of conversation and allow people to discover their, their love for the animals, and discover that the principles of nonviolence are already with them in their heart. And the things we need to learn are several methods of communication. There are three V's of communication, and now I will try to again shift the camera to the screen. So the three V's of communication would be verbal, visual, and vocal. What does it mean? It means that 55%, a psychologist, Albert Mehrabian, discovered that 55% of our communication comes from our visual experience, things like body language, and so more than half of our total communication with other people comes from visual, comes from body language. 38 comes from vocal, which means how do we say things? Do we sound angry, sad? Do we sound happy? And only then 7% of communication comes from the words we utter. So only 7% comes from the things we actually do say. So the things such as vegan values, things like principles of nonviolence, comes from just 7% of the entire communication we have with people. Now, by doing these, by applying these techniques, and by introducing body language to our street activism, to things we do on the street, we are basically learning how to influence people in such ways so that they perceive us as non-threatening and friendly and non-pushy, just as if they were speaking to a friend. So the first thing we need to do, and this is absolutely crucial, the first thing we need to do when talking to an individual during our street activism sessions is to build a rapport. Now, it is not so easy to explain what we'll imagine as if rapport was sort of a bank account we have with that relationship bank account we have with that individual, that person we're talking to. So from the very first moment we start talking to this person, we get a chance to make investments, to give positive impressions of ourselves to that person, and to build our relationship that will last us for at least next 10 minutes to, I don't know, 45 minutes during the duration of our conversation. And this is crucial because from the very moment the person on the street who is standing and, for instance, watching the screen with this horrible footage of animal being abused, the moment that person becomes aware of our presence, we have the opportunity to start making these investments into our relationship. And why is this so important to do? Why is it so important to build a rapport and to build trust and give the positive impression to the individual? Is because sooner or later, in the matter of seconds or minutes, we will get into that horrible footage. We will get into the specifics of what's going on, and this is where we will sooner or later come to a disagreement. If we did our job well, if we built a rapport, if we made enough investments into that relationship, then when we come to disagreement, when we come to clash, that relationship of ours will be able to withstand that stress of actually talking about that, about something that is not comfortable, or about something that we disagree with, actually disagree about. So the first thing we should do, and this is something I found to be working really well for myself and for conversations that I'm having on the street with people. When you approach people, you should apply body language that is giving a positive impression on the people. So like almost all conversations, or should I say all conversations I start with people in the street, I start with a big smile on my face. And because that smile, that first impression on the people is, they can perceive me as non-threatening, as someone who's not there to judge them, someone who's not there to, you know, accuse them of being, you know, being responsible for the things that are happening on the screen. And in a couple of moments we will get into that, but that first impression I like to start on a positive note, so that people can you know, get the first impression about me as an individual, as a positive experience. And the other thing that is also commonly applied is your posture. So when you approach a person, try not to have your, you know, arms crossed. Try not to hug yourself. Try not to, you know, people usually don't know what to do with their hands. You know, when you're listening to somebody, you assume a posture like this or like this because we simply feel more comfortable physically in that way. But I would advise against this. Also, I would advise against things like holding your hands like this or like this, because it signifies power over your or the individual person you're talking to, and you don't want that to happen. Usually myself, I just hold my hands like this, you know, with open palms, just listening to people. And usually I hold my hands in front of myself or by my side. The other thing that is really important, besides the, you know, smiling, is when you're listening to people, a good thing is to nod a lot, because not only it affirms that you are actually listening to people who are talking to you, and that you are paying attention to what is being said, and that you are understanding what is coming from them. Also making eye contact. I'm not saying you should stare at people, but you know, looking people in their eyes, not shifting your gaze around, not looking at your feet when you talk to people. It's also a good thing, you know. Don't overdo it, don't stare into people, but tossing a glance and smiling and nodding, it will give a very positive impression on the people you're talking to. And then you can, there was this research that says that motioning with your palms open tends to make people, tends people to perceive you as a trustworthy person. I'm not exactly sure whether that is true or not, but I started doing it. You know, when I motion to the screen, I would do it like this or like this. I would point the finger or something like that. So you can use that open palms. A lot of people are applying that technique, and it works. The way I do this, I've learned this from Alex Bez, and I think it's a really, really good way to prepare yourself for the conversation with people, is by feeling genuinely grateful for the chance to talk to that individual. So when you see a bystander on the street, when you see them watching the footage for a couple of minutes or a couple of moments, and when you approach them, when you start the conversation with them, I feel grateful in my heart. I feel grateful for the chance and to speak to them, and for the time they actually invested in looking into this. Just think about how many people are just passing by, not paying attention, or being in a rush. You know, I'm not judging those people. They have, you know, things to go and they are busy or whatever. But those people who actually stand, who invest their time into watching the footage with us, I always feel grateful, and I'm trying to show them my gratitude throughout the conversation. I'm trying to genuinely show them that I'm truly grateful for them investing their time into things like this. Also, one good thing to do is when you approach a person, I would always advise approaching that person from the side. So as opposed, I'll just do a quick demonstration with my own palm. I don't have somebody to help me here. But if you approach somebody from the front, then this is maybe the comfortable distance you will be talking to somebody, but usually the distance is way farther. You're putting at least, I don't know, 2 meters or 1.5 meters between you. But when you approach a person from the side, you basically come to them shoulder to shoulder, and their head is right here. If I shifted it like this wouldn't be a comfortable position to talk to somebody, but like this, it is way more comfortable. And that's one thing, you're closer to people. The other thing is when you approach people and when you watch the footage with them, it's the two of you or opposed to that thing. So the two of you and the individual you're speaking to are together observing what is going on the screen, and you're not opposing each other. When you're talking about that horrible thing that is going on, and people tend to perceive that as a better way to communicate with you if you are standing beside them and not opposed to them. So, and this is the visual, the visual part that makes up for 55% of our communication. That's just for a start. Throughout the entire conversation, you should tend to, you know, make eye contact and smile and nod and, you know, just keep your posture in a non-threatening way. And the most important thing about all these things is to be genuine. So if you are having a fake smile, or if you are, you know, forcing yourself to do things, people will see through it. And this is why I mentioned the previous trick with being grateful for people actually giving you a chance, because in that way you also perceive them as, you know, friends or individuals who are genuinely interested in these topics and that invested their own time into looking at the horrible problem that is carnism. So once you approach the person, there is a certain set of questions that you can ask them, and here we come to talk about the closed questions, the open questions, and the investigative questions. So let me just shift my screen again. So closed type of questions would be questions that are that can only result in a yes or no answer. So for instance, one of the most common questions we ask is, do you think that animal abuse is wrong? And most people will tell you yes, animal abuse is wrong. However, by asking if animal abuse is wrong, you just got a yes or no question, and you missed on a chance to explore it further. So instead, for instance, instead of asking, do you think that animal abuse is wrong, you can ask an open-ended question such as, what do you think about animal abuse? And here you're giving that person a chance to speak about the animals. You know, you remember when I said before that people believe what they say. So you're actually giving that individual a chance to hear themselves saying things such as animal abuse is wrong because animals are suffering, because it shouldn't happen to them, etc., etc. So you are getting a wide spectrum of answers. You're getting a lot of information. You're getting a wide scope, and you are basically inviting people to speak to you. You're inviting people to a conversation as opposed to a debate or an argument. And the third type of question would be the investigative question. That means when a person actually gives you an answer, you can ask them additional questions so that you will help them understand what they're saying, and also it gives you an awesome chance to understand them and to get even more answers from them so that you may use them later on. So, like I said, the closed-ended questions start with do you, did you, will you, have you, can you, could you, should you, would you. So if you ask, have you thought about this? They will tell you yes or no. But if you ask them, you know, what do you think about this? Then they will give you far more, you know, a far wider answer, and you will allow them to clarify what they're saying. One of the most important questions is of course why. It seeks understanding from them why they think what they think, why is it important, etc., etc. And also, like I said, you can ask investigative questions such as, tell me more, help me understand that, describe me what led you to this, etc., etc. So when you start a conversation, there are four steps you can take to start and steer the conversation in the way that will allow people to think and to hear themselves talking about non-violence to animals and about veganism. So the first thing I usually ask people when I approach them, they're obviously watching the footage. I usually ask them to explain to me what they're watching. So the first thing I say usually when I approach a person is, have you seen this type of footage before? And 9 out of 10 times I would get an answer that they haven't seen this before, and they will be in a state of shock. They would be you know, just blankly staring at it. And if they say yes, you can then expand on that question. Again, asking an open-ended question such as, where have you seen it? This will show you, this will help you with understanding where people are coming from, if they know about these issues, and it will generally save you time if people are that you're talking to are aware of what's going on, so you can, you know, maybe apply some more advanced talk to them, and, you know, just don't waste your and their time by explaining something that they may already know. And then the next thing you can ask them is, what have you seen so far? So you're basically asking people to describe to you what's going on, what have they seen, what's on the screen, you know, and then they usually give you an answer. You know, usually they didn't even have enough time to see everything. And then you can expand on that as well. When they give an answer, for instance, they will say, I saw that, you know, cows or chickens are being treated in this way. Most of the time, they will not understand what's going on. And this is a great moment to invite them to come closer, to actually see what's going on. And it's also another way of building your rapport with them. You are offering them, you're extending your invitation to them to give them basically a tour of what's going on. What's good to do, it's good to introduce yourself. People are not familiar with different kinds of organizations, so when you actually introduce yourself, you can basically approach a person and say, hello, introduce yourself. You can, if you're wearing a shirt of that particular organization that you're representing at the event, you can point at the shirt, you can say, I represent, I don't know, an organization called Circle of Silence, or I represent the organization Save Movement, Anonymous for the Voiceless, etc., and basically introduce people to yourself and help them make another connection with you. So after you invited people to actually see what's going on, the next thing is we will focus on the emotions people are experiencing when watching videos. So the first thing you should ask is, how do you feel when you see this? And the thing I usually do is here I already start applying the visual aspect of the conversation. When I would say, when I ask them, how do you feel about this? Usually I would just touch myself, touch my heart. How do you feel about what you see here? And it's helping people to connect, to actually express themselves. And what you should do next is listen very, very carefully, because the things people will tell you in the following answers is absolutely paramount, absolutely important for the rest of the conversation. And usually when you ask them, how do you feel about, how do you feel when you see this? They will tell you they feel sad, they feel angry, they feel, I don't know, bad or whatever. It's very, very extremely rare for people to say that they are feeling normal or they don't feel anything about what they see. So when you ask them how they feel, you can then expand on that. You can then ask another open-ended question, another investigative question, and ask them what specifically makes them feel the way they do. So if they said they feel sad, you can ask them what specifically makes you feel sad, and then you are allowing them to immerse themselves into the footage itself, to connect with those animals as well. And another question that is also very useful, they will usually tell you that it makes them feel bad the way animals are treated. And then you can expand even further. You can ask them, what is it about animals? And you then put the emphasis on the animals. What is it about the animals being treated this way that bothers you so much? And here, you just let people talk. You just let them express their feelings towards the animals. Just let them connect with the animals and realize for themselves that they are absolutely not in favor of such treatment of the animals. And also the thing you can ask them is, how do you think the animals feel? So you're allowing people to put themselves into the perspective of an animal and to let them know, to let them express their feelings about the animals themselves. Here you will remember, you're going to remember what people told you, if they felt bad, if they felt sad, why they felt bad, why they felt sad. And this is basically, this represents their values. They're valuing they're valuing the animals, they're valuing their lives. It's important for them that animals are not treated in this way. You just allow them to express themselves in that way. And then you can actually move to the second stage, which is actually the problem itself. The problem itself, which is the animal industry. And here you can ask a set of questions such as, since most people are against this, what do you think causes this to happen? And here again, you are allowing people to think about it, to give it enough, enough intention, enough thought about it, and to basically come to an answer themselves. It's sometimes people will say that this is happening because those slaughterhouse workers are mad or crazy or evil people, but then by asking additional questions, such as what else do you think causes this to happen? Like, what is the reason? What is the underlying reason of animals being there? What is forcing the animals to be in such facilities? What brings them there? Who takes them out, etc., etc. You're basically, like I said, coaching people. You're allowing them to talk about the whole animal agriculture and the whole problem themselves. And this way they are actually hearing themselves talking about these topics. And and then you can ask them, think like, do you think that we have to do this to animals? This is one of the closed-ended questions that are very useful, because it will give you insight into how people think. If people tell you that they believe that we have to do this to people, to the animals, if they say we must do these things to animals, then you can further explore on why. Why do you think we need to do this? Why is it important, etc., etc. And if they say, no, we don't have to do this, then you can move on to the next stage of your conversation with them, which would present a solution. So when you can ask them if they said, yes, we don't have to do this to animals, you can say that, given that we don't have to, how do you think we can stop this? And again, you are here encouraging people to think about the problem, to think about the possible solutions for the problem. And if sometimes they will tell you that there's no way we can stop this, that too many people in the world is doing this, that this is a global problem. Like very often I hear that thing. And that the question that follows is, what do you think that we can do as individuals? So as, like, forget about the global problems, forget about what's going on in the politics, forget about export-import. Just tell me what, as individuals, we can do to help these animals. And here people usually connect that the problem, that the footage itself, which is something they don't like, that's something that feels them, that makes them feel sad, they sometimes they realize that the main issue between all these things is ourselves, is our habits, our the ways we choose to spend our money, etc., etc. And then when they realize this, when they tell you about it, you can ask them a powerful question, such as, it's a closed-ended question, but again, it helps you and them in the long run. Would that be too difficult for you? For instance, would would stopping eating animals would be too difficult for you? And they can tell you yes, or they can tell you no. So if they say no, you are pretty much done a great job. But the worst thing that can happen is that they will tell you that, yes, that would be too difficult for you, but fear not. Because here we have another opportunity to further expand on the knowledge and ask people what would be the most difficult thing to, what would be the most difficult thing for you, what would be the most difficult obstacle you see to overcome if you were to go vegan. And it's not only allowing people to express themselves, to actually think about the real issues they have. It's also giving you the chance to, it's also putting them in a mindset where they are actually trying to overcome their own obstacles. You know, they are thinking in the way, if I went vegan, this is what my obstacle would be. And then they will give you an answer. They will tell you it's either, you know, the usual things such as the health benefits, the taste, I don't know, it's expensive, or I don't have the time for it, or it's just the habit I have. And this is where we are getting to the actual. So up until this point, throughout the entire conversation with this individual, we have not once come to clash with them. We have not once came to disagree with them. We just allowed them to talk, allowed them to express themselves, and then we are coming to the actual objection of their why they are not ready, or what would be the obstacle they perceive in going vegan and the principle of nonviolence. And here there are actually 7 steps that we can take to 7 steps of objection handling. I will have to go quickly through them because time is running short. Those things are, first thing, when you ask them, for instance, why is it so important? What would be the greatest issue for you if you decided to go vegan? Let's say that the greatest problem for them would be because they are afraid that they will not be able to you know, stay healthy, or to maintain the level of muscles or whatever. Don't interrupt them. Allow them to talk. Allow them to express their problem. And once they do, once they tell you, okay, I have a concern that I wouldn't get enough protein, that I wouldn't get enough minerals. There are things, you know, the usual thing people say, there are things in meat or eggs or milk that we need, etc., etc. It is always heard. So I'm not saying you should confirm what they're saying, but I'm saying you should ask them back if you got them right. For instance, if they told you that protein would be an issue, you should say, okay, so if I got you right, the main issue you have with severing your connection to this, and I will always point back, always show back to the footage itself. You can ask, if I got you right, the main issue you have with going vegan and severing yourself from this horrible things that are going on is that you're concerned that you will not get enough protein, that you will not get enough you know, nutrients that you require. And the benefits of this acknowledgement that when you ask them back to confirm what you just said is, first, they actually see that you listen to them and that you pay attention to what they're saying. And the other thing would be to allow them to clarify. In many cases, what you understand people is not what they actually said. So by actually asking them to clarify, you are saving yourself a lot of time. People can say, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, or people can say, no, not as quite, and then again explain in a different way how they feel. The next step we can take, and this is all happening very fast. These 7 steps that can happen in a matter of 1 minute. It's not just some steps to climb. It's just something that once you get used to it, it just once you get enough practice, it just goes on its own. The next thing you can do, you can relate to their issue. You can say yes. For instance, if we are still talking about protein, you can say yes. That's something I was concerned when I first got into this thing. I had my own concerns, and or if you didn't, if you already knew, you should never lie to people. You should never, try to empathize with them by lying to them, by saying, yes, I felt the same way. But what you can do, you can actually, a lot of people, you probably know a lot of people who are actually concerned with this issue of protein deficiency. And then you can say, yes, that's something I hear quite a lot. People are saying that very often on the street when you talk to them. And then next thing, you can ask more questions like, where did you hear about it? What do you usually do to have like an eating plan? Do you use an app? What's your source of information? Just get them to give you even more answers, so that you can so that you can basically understand what they're saying. And then once again, you can once again repeat to them what they just said, just to make sure you're on the same page. And after that, the thing you can do is to present them a solution. For instance, if they said, I am concerned about protein deficiency, I'm concerned that I wouldn't be able to get all the nutrients I need, you can ask them a thing like, so if there was a way, if you found out that there is actually a way to satisfy your taste buds and to stay healthy and to exclude this type of things you see on the screen, and always bring people back to the screen, bring people back to what you're talking about, remind them that we are still talking about the animals, that it's still that this horrible thing that's happening to animals, the main focus of our conversation. You can ask them if you found out that there is a way, that there is a mean to maintain your health, to to maintain your health and everything. If you found out everything that to be true, and then this is the last and the most important thing, is to ask a close-ended question, is if you found that all to be true, that we can live and be happy and satisfy our pleasure with vegan food, would you go home and watch this documentary or check this card with resources I have and do more research into this and go vegan? And again, this is where they can say yes, which means that you did your job great. The worst thing that can happen is to say no, which then brings you back. Brings you back to the first thing is objection. And again, they will tell you no, because etc., etc. And then you can basically repeat this whole listen, acknowledge, empathize, ask questions, etc. Process to handle the next objection they have. And when you talk to people like this, it is time very well spent. And if they perceive you as a cool and non-threatening and nice individual, then the chances are dramatically increased that you will actually be able to send the message of vegan values, of non-violence to animals, to a random bystander who just happened upon these videos on the street. So here is where I will end my lecture. Once again, I want to thank you all. I'm inviting you to watch as many videos as possible. You should, if you haven't so far, check out ebook from Earthing Ad, 30 arguments for against veganism and how to handle them. That will help you become a real expert. And if you have any more questions, or if you want to connect, you can do so on Facebook page, Animalia269, or just write to our email, animalia269@gmail.com. Once again, guys, thank you so much for giving me a chance to speak to you, and thank you for organizing this awesome event.
Thank you so much, Davor. And yeah, we don't have time for question and answers, unfortunately. I just wanted to say I'm terribly sorry that I completely forgot to introduce you before your lecture, because it was very fast shift from the previous lecture and so on. Thanks a lot. It was, wow. It was super cool, very interesting and useful. And let's keep connected and hopefully see you offline next year.
Thanks so much, guys. And yeah, it's not a problem. I usually introduce myself, so all cool. Thank you once again for having me. And I wish you all the best in your further, further activism and your further fight for the animal rights.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening. Ciao,
Have
ciao.
a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.